Hello everyone, so this is my third take on this video, so I'm hoping this one works out well. It's been a minute since I made a video. I usually open that way, it seems. Got really sick over the Thanksgiving to Christmas holiday there and couldn't really talk, so thought it would be a bad idea to subject you guys to that. But things didn't pan out too badly for me. As you can see, I have acquired a Steam Deck, courtesy of my lovely wife for Christmas. Top tier one too, so fantastic news there for me. Yeah, and so I've been playing with it over the past month, trying to learn the ins and outs of it, get the quirks all set up, figure out what I needed to do to get the most out of the device. And I finally ended up getting my 1 terabyte memory chip card, whatever, for it, and decided that now might be a good time to finally tackle the subject of getting Skyrim with Mod Organizer 2 to run on the Steam Deck. And I actually did a video back a little while back that was fairly popular, talking about this very topic, but it was more Linux centric, specifically to targeting just general Linux desktop and laptop operating systems. But that video will not really work on the Steam Deck. I mean, unless you're really clever and you sort of adapt it properly. But that's kind of what this video is about. This is showing you guys how to adapt what I did then to now. Now, I'm going to try to do this video in such a way that it is not going to require you to have watched the other video. But if you want to, you can always go back and take a look at that video to get more detail, or just see what the differences are, or if you have other computers or operating systems that are Linux-based that you want to do this on, you can take that video into consideration as well. But this will be the one to watch for the Steam Deck specifically. So one thing you should be aware of, if you can see this, this is actually running, this is my Steam Deck that you're seeing on the screen here. It's running in Steam Link, and it's being cast wirelessly to my desktop. So you can see my Steam Deck as though you were being recorded directly from it, but you are in fact seeing my desktop recording my Steam Deck. So it'll be kind of, maybe the proportions will be a little weird, and maybe it'll be a little blown up. But that's why. I actually don't think I'm going to do anything to correct it, though, because I like the fact that it makes the text look really big, and it should make it nice and easy for you guys to read. But rest assured, despite that it looks a little fuzzy, I am in fact recording this in 4K. So I don't know how the quality is going to come out. Hopefully it's okay. Anyway, let's move on. I want to get through this a little bit more quickly than my other takes were. So basically what I've managed to accomplish here so far is I've gotten some basic mods to work. I installed the ENB, although I haven't really installed anything to take advantage of the ENB yet, but it seems to work correctly. I have installed SkyUI and SKSE, so I know those work correctly. So yeah, that works really well. And of course, this is my video. We don't do anything halfway here, so we're going to take the full approach here and do first-class citizen stuff, meaning when I get done, what you get on Linux should look quite a bit like what you would get on Windows. You'll be more or less feature complete. So the first thing you need to know is what prerequisites you're going to need for this. And to answer that simply, nothing. Really, the only thing you're going to need is the mod organizer executable, which if we go to our web browser, you can get from this mod Nexus Mods website. So basically just, log in, click on your Steam Special Edition over here, or I'm sorry, Skyrim Special Edition over here. Then you can search for Mod Organizer 2, and it should pop up and you can just click it. Otherwise, you can also just Google Mod Organizer 2, and you should find a link to the download for it. But if you go in there, you go into Files, you download Mod Organizer 2, and then you should get an executable that you can extract, probably from a 7-zip file, I think. I'm not entirely sure. But anyway, what you're looking for is the executable. I think an MSI should work too. It doesn't really matter. Either way, they should all work. And then basically that executable, you're going to plop that down. Let's see, is this? Yeah. So I put it here. This is the root directory of my memory card. So it's the top level on my memory card. So I threw that here. And that's where we're going to run it from, basically. Let me get this to be normal again. I obviously switched modes and it made my thing ugly. Okay, so let me drag this want to. Basically, what we're going to do is I've got a couple of commands that we're going to build up here. So I have this is my little Vim. Well, really, it's a NeoVim text editor, and it's got my command breakdown here. So I'm going to paste this in here kind of in a step-by-step sort of means so that you can see it. So currently I'm sitting at the root level of my memory card. That's what this directory here is. So if you're doing this somewhere else, obviously you're going to want to adjust accordingly. Now, first things first, you're going to want to install Steam. Okay, so Steam is, I'm sorry, not Steam. Steam you have because you're on a SteamOS, Steam Deck. So you're going to want to install Skyrim. So what you need to understand about this is this video specifically is targeting Skyrim Special Edition / Anniversary Edition, whatever the newest one is as of the big date you see here in the lower corner here, the lower right corner. And so it should work with Anniversary, Special Edition, etc. And it is also assuming that you have purchased Skyrim through Steam, not through some other means like Good Old Games or wherever else you might have acquired it from. I'm not saying it won't work with that, but that's not the target of this video. This video is specifically targeted towards Steam purchasers. So, you know, you might be able to use it to get it to work with other editions, but your mileage may vary and you may need to translate a bit. So just full disclosure there. Okay, so in game mode or in normal desktop mode, you can obviously install Skyrim and that'll be fine. But in game mode, Skyrim may not launch for you just yet. It certainly didn't for me, and that's because it has a launcher application that pops up with it that allows you to set like the quality settings and stuff. In that launcher, you can go ahead and set that to Ultra if you want, but the way to get it to run for now is going to be to run it through your actual Steam interface. So just launch your Steam interface in desktop mode, and then you should be able to install your game, or if it's not or if it's already installed, you should be able to run your game. And I do recommend that you run it at least once just to populate things that might not be there. You know, make a character, save them, whatever, and then quit the game. That'll do a couple of things. One, it'll populate things that might not necessarily be populated at first, so you have the full folder structure and all the stuff that's in it. I'm actually not 100% sure if that's necessary for that purpose, but the other purpose behind that is to test it and make sure everything is running well before we go bolting on a bunch of mods and Mod Organizer 2 stuff. You want to get that baseline and make sure everything's working before you do anything else. Okay, so let's move forward. So to actually get the installation going, you're going to probably want to be in the directory with your Mod Organizer 2 installer, but that's not strictly necessary. It just makes it a little easier, I think. And then I'm going to copy in, that's not what I wanted. Let's go back over to this guy here, and we will do this. Apparently I don't have the clipboard copy feature set up, possibly, I think. So I should be able to yank this, but apparently not. That's okay though, we can just do this. And then if I go back here, I should be able to paste. Okay, so this basically is the first part of the command, and it's actually not even really a command, it's more of an environment variable. But I want to take a little side note here to show you something kind of cool that you can do to make this a little easier for you if you're trying to set this up, okay? So first of all, if you are a newer Linux user, or you don't really know how the terminal works very well, or you don't really understand, you know, terminal editor, text editors, terminal-based text editors such as VI or Vim or NeoVim or any of that stuff, you can just use kwrite or Kate. So kwrite or Kate if you prefer. Kwrite's probably the easier of the two. That's basically just a generic text editor for the KDE environment, which is the desktop environment we're using. And what that'll do is it'll allow you to build your commands, and then you can copy and paste them back into the terminal, so that way you don't have to worry about mousing around and not being, because like you can't just click on a spot here and then start typing, for instance. But if you are a Linuxy person, or you're more adventurous, you can do this. So if you hold down the control key and you press the letters X and E while you're just in sequence like that while you're in the terminal, it will pop open in your default text editor. In my case, that is Vim. for now, right? I plan on switching that, in this case, over to NeoVim at some point, but for now it's launching, I think, just standard Vim, which is fine. But anyway, the point is in here we can now manipulate this with normal Vim commands. So if you followed along with me and you're in Vim now, you can use the letter I to enter insert mode, and you'll see that now you have the word insert down here. And now you can do Control, Shift, and V to copy or to paste information in here if you want to. Of course, in your case, you probably won't be pasting information unless you're doing it from... well, you know what? I'll put these. I'll put as much of this stuff as I can in the description, or I may put it in a paste bin or something like that. So if you do want to paste some of the stuff that I have, the keystrokes are Control, Shift, and V, and you'll be able to do that. Okay, so basically, to tell you what's going on here, this is an environment variable. So all Linux commands are basically just shell scripts. They're just like one-offs though. So basically you can take advantage of that and you can make these more complex. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here. So this is an environment variable, and basically it's the Steam Compact Client install path. And so what that's basically looking for is the install path for Steam. Now on the Steam Deck, yours should match mine because we're both using a Steam Deck, and that will be user bin Steam, okay? But if in the future that does change at some point and you want to be able to find out where that path has changed to, or if for some reason you need to locate Steam and you know that's different, or you're using a different OS or something, whatever the case, I'll show you how to go ahead and find out. So there's a command in Linux called where is, and you can do where is Steam just like that, and then we can press enter, and we should get this information here. Okay, so we should see user bin Steam. Now those are libraries, and those are probably not what you want here. You want the binary file. The binary file, in Linux we refer to binary files. It's kind of like the executable file in Windows. Binaries are executable files. They're designed to be run, basically. More or less, we call them binaries. That's why the folder normally is called bin. Effectively, you can execute this. So now what you can do is you can paste that, copy this and paste this in here with this Control Shift V. So if you highlight this and then right click on it, you'll get a menu where you can copy, and then you can do Control Shift V, and that will paste it in your terminal over here. And then basically what you can do now is we can go back over to our other terminal. So let's click on this guy, and we'll grab the next line, and I believe this should work. Let's test it again. Let's see. Nope, it didn't work. Okay, so we'll do Control. We'll do U. All right, so let me go back over. I need to fix that. So I'll just copy it this way then. Okay. Okay, so this is a second environment variable. Note the space here. So Steam, and then you got space, and then you got this environment variable, Steam Compact Data Path. And this is going to be the path to your prefix for wine, basically. Well, specifically the directory just above the prefix for your wine setup. So wine, to explain, basically, and Proton by extension, uses a concept called contexts or prefixes or bottles, basically. Those words are more or less interchangeable. Anyway, basically, what we're doing is we're pointing it at the path just above that prefix. And this path is basically going to be the same on this as it is on yours, so you can pretty much copy this exactly. So here we have home deck Steam .steam, which the dot for those who don't know, if you're not a Linux person, the dot means it's a hidden folder. And then Steam apps, compact data, and then you have this 4898330 number. That is actually the app ID for your Steam application. And so that is specific to the Skyrim 2nd edition that you can purchase on Steam. So you're going to want to use that app ID there. To find out your app ID, I actually go over that in more detail on my prior video. So if you do want to try this on the old RIM or the older one, that will have a different app ID. Basically, what you're going to do is you're going to go into Steam, you're going to go into the Steam store, you're going to right click on the Steam store's page for that particular game, and then in there you should get a copy URL, and if you paste that into a text editor or into your web browser or wherever, you'll notice that the app ID is within the URL. Again, I demonstrate that more in the other video, and I'll put a link to that in the description. But anyway, for now, that's all you need to worry about. So once you have that variable done, we're ready to actually point to the actual command we're going to run. So that's going to be this guy here, which is the path to Proton. So let me copy this guy. And then we're just going to hop back over here. And so we're just going to paste this with the space. Don't forget the space. Okay, so here what we want to do is we're going to go home, deck, and then a .steam. Now note that you can use a tilde because tilde is technically the shortcut for the home directory. For those of you who don't know, the tilde is the upper left character on your keyboard, just under escape, just left of the number 1. If you're using a standard QWERTY keyboard with, I guess, American symbols, I'm not sure how other languages do their thing, but the character I'm talking about looks like that. And that is basically a shortcut for home directory. And a lot of times you can use that, but I found that if you don't use the absolute path, in other words, if you don't use home deck here, I've noticed that some operating systems don't like that. And they prefer you to just use this, and they just won't find the path correctly. So you need to use absolute, what they call absolute paths. Another thing here is I've quoted this, and so it's treating this as all one string despite the break in this here, right? So to actually do this, if you don't want to quote it, you'd need to put a / before that that space there. I didn't really explain that real well in the prior video, and people were asking about that. But basically what I'm doing there is I'd be escaping that character. But because I have quotes around it, I actually do not require that / there. So you can just paste that just as it is there with the quotes around it, and you'll be good to go. And this Proton 7.0, that's actually using the 7.0-6, I think, as of this video. That's just a Proton version that I have noted works. Somebody asked me in the comments on the prior video, could you use experimental? And the answer, I'm pretty sure, is yes. You know, try it out. You can always change it. If it doesn't work, it's fine, I think. Just change it to the other one and it'll be fine. So the next thing we're going to want is the verb run. And I'm actually going to skip that because the show's short. I don't even need to copy and paste that. I'm just going to type it in. And I'll copy this bit. Okay, so now we're going to want the word run here. Okay, so run like that. Okay, and then I'm going to copy in the next one. And that's actually the path to our mod organizer 2 installer. You may recognize the run media MMC BLK 0P1. That's my memory card. Mod organizer 2 dash whatever. That's the mod organizer.executable. You could actually move that to a shorter name like MO2 installer if you want, in order to save yourself some typing. But personally, I just copy and paste it and make sure it's quoted so I don't have to / stuff or whatever. But anyway, now that you have this done, basically what we're going to do is if you're using VI or Vim, hit escape, hit :QW, or :WQ, sorry, and then press enter. And that will put that command into your terminal so that you can then, you know, use it as a command. If you use kwrite or kwrite or Kate or some other text editor, copy and paste your command back in now, and then you should be able to press enter, and you will notice that your launcher or your executable has run, and it will now allow you to install mod organizer 2. So to follow along with these prompts here, we're going to take the I accept, of course, otherwise, you know, you're not installing anything. We're going to do next, we're going to take the defaults here. You can change it, but if you do, be prepared to adjust things later accordingly to what you change it to here. So I would recommend you keep it default unless you're very confident in knowing what you're doing. And then do next. Okay, here we're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and we're just going to uncheck this guy here because we are not running Windows, so therefore we don't have Windows Defender running, and so therefore we don't need the exclusions. Good to go, okay? Next up, for here, we're just going to check do not create a start menu folder. That's unnecessary. Hit next. We're going to leave this unchecked. Create a desktop shortcut. We don't need one. Hit next. Now we're going to click install, or at least you guys are going to click install. In my case, I'm going to click cancel because I already have it installed. I don't need to do that. But you should be able to follow along with the remaining information and get through the rest of the install pretty easily at this point. It's all very self-explanatory. In fact, I think it just basically finishes installing and you click OK and finish and done. That's it. So yeah, I'm going to click cancel. You guys finish up the installation. All right, so One thing I should note, and I didn't explain this very well in my first video, was that there are some follow-up questions the first time you launch Mod Organizer 2. So if you do launch Mod Organizer 2 now at this point, basically you'll end up with a situation where it's going to ask you questions like, do you want to install it as a modular install, or do you want to install it as a, I think they call it a static or stationary install. And my first attempt at this on my actual Linux system, I did the static one because I thought it would be better somehow, or maybe easier to work with, but that's actually not true. It's not really any better or worse, but it is easier to work with a modular install. Why is that? Well, basically all of the folders get put underneath that modding and then MO2 directory. So basically you don't have to dig as far to find where your mods are located and where your downloads are and that sort of thing. So I kind of recommend going with a modular install, but it doesn't really hurt either way. I'm going to assume you did a modular install for this, but if you do decide to do the other install, just make sure you're prepared to update your, interpret accordingly, right? Okay, so to actually launch Mod Organizer 2, it's basically the same command, except instead of using this .executable here, we're going to point it at our Mod Organizer 2 executable. So basically it's this same command here, and we'll just copy this like this. Paste this in here like this, and then it is going to be like this. I think it was actually home. You know what? Let me do it faster. So basically, it'll be where did I put it? MO2. This folder here. So it's going to be this path. Copy that. I'm going to come back over to this guy here, and we're going to paste that, but we're going to do it with quotes around it. And then, yeah, that should work. And then we're going to put a / at the end of that, and we are going to don't pay any attention to the text that is grayed out in my terminal. That is basically a sort of a predictive text sort of thing I have installed. So you can safely ignore that. So I'm just going to copy this file name here to make sure I don't mess it up. And I'm going to paste that after that / there. And I'm going to complete those quotes. So this is actually going to launch modorganizer.exe. And you can see that we do in fact get that to happen. Now I do recommend doing that in your terminal for the first time, because if you have any problems, it gives you this output. So if there are any major game-changing errors, some of this stuff is obviously going to be negligible. Like these are kind of errors, I think, for stuff that it's not working, that aren't working or whatever. And personally, those are negligible. They're not hindering it from functioning properly. And the only way to probably fix them is to have somebody fix the code. Like I don't know how to make that better. But you can see here that it does actually launch Mod Organizer 2. And so that is great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to close that guy down. And we're going to go ahead and start making some shortcuts to make stuff work. So now what we can do is we can get NXM handler going. So that will work. So to do that, we're going to go, actually, it would be best if I actually launch another terminal, I think. So we can see we've got another terminal here. We're going to go into, let's see, .local/bin. So in local bin, I have a couple of scripts that I've written here. So first I have NXM handler, and that is going to look like this. So if I go by NXM handler .desktop, sorry, just the script there. Okay, so that's going to look like this. So this is our NXM handler. Okay, so you'll notice that it looks very much like what I just used over here to launch the the Mod Organizer. So up until basically the Mod Organizer.exe. So here you can see I've switched that for NXM handler.exe, and I've added this $1 deal to the end of it. So the NXM handler.exe is the component that actually handles the Nexus Mod Manager links, or what the mod links, basically, the NXM links. But obviously, Linux doesn't know what the heck to do with an exe file on its own. We have to wrap it in Proton or Wine in some way. And in our case, it's more advantageous for us to just wrap it up in the context that we already have it in. Otherwise, it's not going to find anything. So that's why I've used the exact same command up to this point, right? The $1 is a fancy little argument that basically says forward all the arguments that get passed to this, well, basically the first argument that gets passed to it, to this command here. So basically, if you put NXM handler in your terminal shell and then put like a URL after it, it's going to basically feed that to NXM handler, and that's basically what makes it work. Okay. So this directory that I've created here, you may not have this bin directory. If you don't, just create it. Most Linux distros, I think, should have it by default, or they should have it at least in the path for the user, so that, you know, if you do create it and put stuff in there, it will run. Steam Deck does not appear to have that way, or at least not in my case. So I'll show you what I did. In my case, I'm using ZSH here, but I think bash rc also works. Let me see, bash rc. Yeah, so bash rc also works, that's fine. But in my case, I use ZSH-rc. You can do it either way. So if you're using Z shell, you can do ZSH. If you're using bash, you can use bash rc. Z shell is, interestingly enough, on there by default. You can just switch to it if you want. You don't have to do anything special. So that's great. So what I did is I appended this line here to the end of my ZSH-rc, but you can put it in your bash rc, like I said, and it will work fine. Basically what it's doing is it's adding this bit to the path variable. So you got this .local bin. That should look quite familiar. And what that means is I can type NXM handler here on my terminal shell, and I can put in any URL I want, and it will do that thing, which is great. So now what I can do is, unfortunately, this is where we kind of deviate from the old video a bit more, because interestingly enough, when you set up your Firefox setup, so I'll show you that. So here, right, we're going to go over here and we're going to do about :config. And interestingly, in the last video, I alluded to the fact that you could probably do this with Chrome. It turns out Chrome is even easier. You don't actually have to do this about config junk. You can just click the link and it will prompt you for what to do with it. But this, I think you still need to do this about config bit. So in my case, I'm going to search for NXM, but you need to actually put this in there. So you need to put this in this box here, okay? Because it's not going to exist on your system. So do network.protocol-handler.expose.nxm. And then you're going to press the little plus button that pops up. So you can see here NXM would have another plus button. Well, in your case, you're going to put this in there, and this is going to pop up much like this NXM did down here, and it's going to have a plus button. You're going to click that plus button, and it's going to make it look like this, like you see it here on my screen. But this might say true. If it does, double click it, and you'll be able to switch it to false. At that point, you're good to go, and you can just close this about config interface, and you're good. So then, from over here, you should be able to click on one of these links and have it prompt you for something, but you'll notice there's a problem. In my prior video, I got this really nifty interface that let me set default stuff and let me put it pointed at a shell script and all kinds of neat stuff. That, unfortunately, does not work here at all. You can't do it because it prompts you with this stupid box that only has the ability to see .desktop files, and it doesn't even let you select one as a default to keep using it over and over and over again. So you end up in this catch-22 situation where it's just annoying. And I don't know if it's really a catch-22, but anyway, it's a bad situation. It's just ugly. So what I did is I created some workarounds. They wanted a .desktop file, so I gave them a .desktop file. So if I go over to, which terminal is it? It's one of these guys. This guy here. So in this guy here, you can see that I've got home, deck, local, share applications. And in here, you'll notice there's some desktop files. So what you can do actually is clone one, or if you want, you can actually right click over here and you can go to edit applications. And since we're all using KDE in this case, you should be able to actually do this yourself. But anyway, if you expand games, and then in games, just make sure it's selected like that, and then click this little plus button up here. This will create a new item. If you want to subfolder it further, you can hit this plus button instead and create a submenu, and then create your secondary underneath it. But We'll do NXM handler first. So basically what you want to do is you want to paste or copy, or I'm sorry, just name it NXM handler. You're going to want to point it at your NXM handler script here, and your command line argument is going to be %u. And then here you can set an icon if you want by clicking this, and then you can just find an icon you like or hit browse and point at an icon you downloaded. To download an icon, the trick I normally use is I come over here, I'll pop this up and I'll do google.com. Sorry, google.com. And then in here, if you do mod organizer 2 and then icon, and then in here you can do images, and then in here you can just find an icon you like, click on that icon, right click that icon, save image as, and then in here you can put this in that directory. So you just follow that path, local, and you do share, and then you can do icons. You can technically put it wherever. I just like to put it in here because this is where other icons kind of go. So in here I just right click and do create new folder and create this custom folder, and then in here this is where I'm sticking my custom icons that I make or download. And then you would set that icon that way, and if you've done it right, it should appear in this box. And then from that point you can just click this save button, and that should get this this guy working for you. You can also take a look at the .desktop file itself by doing by and then or vi or nano or whatever text editor you want, and then nxm handler.desktop. And in here you'll be able to see basically what we've done. You've got the executable, you've got the icon we pointed it at, you got this MIME type. Now this is also important. You need to add this. It won't be here by default, so come in here and do this. It's going to be capital M, MIME, and then capital T, type, equals X, tac scheme, tac handler, /NXM. I don't know if that's actually important to do technically, but I saw that, you know, that was what was recommended by certain people, not specifically for this use case, but, you know, to set the .desktop file up as a handler for different protocols. I saw that people were using it that way. And then what you're going to want to do in order to make this the permanent protocol handler is you run this xdg command. So let me go over there and get this. So basically what you're going to do is you'll copy this command, xdg mime default nxm handler.desktop or whatever you named it, .desktop, and then that x scheme handler and then nxm, and that's actually going to set it as a default. So every time you click your URL, it will do its thing. So here you would just copy this and then paste it in a terminal, or type it out if you like. Doesn't matter where you're at when you run it. Just run that, and then presto, you're good to go. And I'm actually not going to run that because I already did it, so I'll cancel that. And that'll get you good to go there. So the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to create an actual mod organizer 2 item here. So for that, hit your little plus button again, create your thing, do mod organizer 2, Nexus mod manager, whatever you want to call it, however you want to work it. I would generally leave these program and command line arguments blank for now because they are, when I tried to use them that way, it didn't work for me. It kept putting it in there weird and it just wasn't launching the program correctly. So I'll show you how to work around that in just a second here. But again, you can set your icon, enable launch feedback if you prefer. You can set a shortcut key if you like for this one. So you could then create controller settings and then bind the controller key to a shortcut, to a key binding, and then have that key binding trigger. That way on your Steam Deck you can press one of your back paddles to launch, you know, your Nexus Mod Manager if you prefer, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The important thing is you can do that if you want. I don't personally see any value in it, but you know, if you want to be able to quickly launch Mod Organizer 2, that is kind of a cool trick you can use. Hint, hint, you can do that with any application you want. So if you have a particular application, like your task manager or something you want to be able to quickly access, pro tip, you can totally set a shortcut key to any application you want and it will launch. Okay, so once you've got that, we're officially done with this little menu editor. You can close that. We'll hop back over to our terminals, and we want the one that is in our applications because we want to edit our mod organizer 2 mod organizer 2.desktop file we just created. And in here we're going to paste in this exec, and that's where we're going to paste in that that path to our mod organizer 2 exe, which is mod organizer.exe. So it's that same one we used to launch it in the terminal earlier. You're just going to paste that right in here as the exec, and that's it. You're good to go. As long as you have everything quoted and you're using absolute pass, it should be fine. Here you can customize any other options you want, but just leave. I would just leave defaults personally. Okay, so now you have a menu option that can launch it. So now if basically you hit your menu over here and you type mod organizer, mod organizer, you should see that you have the ability to launch that application. But that's not good enough for me. I want to put this in the Steam interface, and you can do that by simply right-clicking here and doing Add to Steam. However, there is some adjustments we're actually going to make, because if you do that on my prior take, it's not actually going to launch your application at all. It's going to break everything. So just leave it as it is for now, add it to Steam, and I'll show you how to fix it. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to want to go back to our folder where we had, let me actually find it. Might have closed it. Nope, it's not that one. It's that one. Yes, this one. So in here, you're going to want to do vim or vi, and or nano if you use nano, MO2, and that's going to make this shell script. So you're going to start it with your bang, your crunch bang, or your hash exclamation point there, and then basically you're going to go, your Steam compact client data, basically that entire mod organizer URL. But after you do that, you're going to come over here and we're going to do this. And this is going to be run media, your media card, if that's where you put it. Basically, your path to your SKSE64 loader.exe. So at this point, you need to install your SKSE application to get that working. And I highly recommend you do that. And I recommend you do not use the one in the Steam interface. So don't install SKSE from Steam. Instead, download it from from the Nexus mod site. So up here you'll do, I think is it SKSE? No. We're gonna do Skyrim script extender. Yeah, this guy, Skyrim script extender SKSE64. That's the specific one you want. Download it from there, or just Google it. And make sure you're getting the one for 2nd edition. Download that and put it in your path. You're basically going to extract it to, let's see. No, where'd it go? I know I had it. Yeah, here. Okay, so this is the path to your Skyrim Special Edition. So here I'll do PWD so you can see that full path. So here I've got it installed on Run Media, my memory card basically, and then Steam Apps, Common, Skyrim Special Edition. In your case, it might be in your Steam folder, like so in your home directory, so Home Deck, and then .steam, Steam Apps, and then Common, Skyrim Special Edition. Something to that effect, basically, depending on where you installed it. I installed it to my memory card because I wanted to save storage on my main operating system, and my memory card is really, really fast, and this is not exactly a high-end video game these days. So, for me, it wasn't that big of a deal, and I just put it on the memory card. But anyway, you're going to want to take your SKSE files, and you're just going to drag them. You're going to extract them to a folder. You're going to open that folder and drag the files in here. You should have SKSE64.dll. And SKSE64 loader.exe, and it'll also put some stuff in your mods folder, I think, and some other places maybe. That's all fine. That's also true of ENB. So if you download the ENB, you just take the ENB Linux version here and drag that DLL out, and he goes right here, and that's really all you need to worry about. It'll populate everything else for you, and you're good to go. And then, of course, once you get your actual ENB from whatever one you're going to use, if it's Rudy or one of the other ones, you would follow the instructions and just drag that stuff over. But the main thing is you have this D3, D11, DLL from the Linux version folder in there, and that'll get your ENB working for you. So once you have your SKSE64 script in there, basically what we're going to do is, if we go back to where we were creating that script, we're going to put the path to that SKSE64 right after this guy. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to basically bypass your mod organizer too. and just launch SKSE 64, but it'll launch it as if you opened Mod Organizer and then ran your game. And what's cool about this is it creates a situation where you can effectively launch your game from your Steam environment, and it will behave as though you just launched Skyrim like it was stock on your system, but it will run it with your mods and your kitted out environment and everything, and that's really, really freaking cool. I'm not entirely sure how well that's going to play with mod profiles yet, so that may take some tweaking. So currently I only have the one default profile. If you create other profiles and you can't figure out how to get it to work, that's something I'm working on. I think there's a TAC-P flag, but I'm not 100% sure on that yet. I haven't gotten there yet, so just understand that this is only with one profile, and I'm not entirely sure how this is going to behave if you start branching out into other profiles in your Mod Organizer 2 interface, okay? But this gives you a way basically to launch Mod Organizer 2 through Steam, and then it also gives you a way to launch Mod Organizer 2 through your menu. So if you actually want to go in and manipulate your mods and stuff, you'll launch it through your menu system like this. If you want to just play the game, you'll launch it through your Steam interface, because honestly it's kind of silly to have the Mod Organizer 2 system in the Steam interface itself, because the Steam interface itself is kind of janky when it comes to things like menus and stuff like that. It doesn't work. The Steam game mode or whatever is it's a window manager technically, and it's a bad one, meaning that it's good at what it does well, but if you take it outside of its comfort zone, it kind of falls apart. And anything with menus and extra stuff like that, like Firefox for instance, falls apart in there. So you're going to want to bypass that. I mean, I have seen Mod Organizer 2 in that interface, and it does work. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense to have it in that interface, because I mean, you're not really going to want to use that interface to mod. It's going to look, it'll behave really weird, and it won't really work well, and it'll probably crash a lot, and I just think it adds too many problems to the equation. But this way you can launch the game from your Steam interface and still play it as though it's a regular game, and it'll look very native and stock, with one exception we'll cover later. It's a janky little thing. One thing I may have forgotten to mention earlier, by the way, with that NXM handler script, is you're going to want to do a chmod plus X on MO2 and also on NXM handler. And that's just going to make sure that the operating system identifies these as executable files. In my case, they show up green if they're executable, but yours may not be pretty colors. And if it's not, just understand that. It's because I've installed ZSH and a bunch of terminal tools that look pretty. My Steam Deck is kind of heavily customized. And if you are interested in the customizations that I've done on my Steam Deck, feel free to drop me a line in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have. And if I get enough questions, I might just cop out and do a video on the whole thing. I'll probably do that anyway, regardless, I think. But I'd be curious to know how many of you are interested in all the different customizations I've done on this, because I do have a lot of quality of life improvements, as you can see, that make my terminal interface and my just general interface here with my Steam Deck very nice. Okay, so at this point, I think we're basically good. So what we need to do now is test out our download features, I think, and then we need to test out Mod Organizer 2 launching the game through the Steam interface in the game mode, I think. Okay, so what I want to do actually is I want to go into my Steam interface, and I want to find my Skyrim game. And for you, this is probably going to say Mod Organizer 2. But for me, I've already renamed it. So it's going to say Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls Special Edition, whatever. If I right-click on this and go Properties, here you can rename it. And I just named it the same as the game. And for now, you're going to want to do that, because I'm going to show you a trick in the actual Steam interface that you're really going to appreciate. Don't worry about your icons and all the pretty pictures yet. We're going to solve that in a minute. But for now, just name it exactly the same as your other version of the game in your Steam Deck. And then you're going to set the target to be that script that we set up. And you're going to leave the start in just alone. No other things need to be set. No other options need to be set. Compatibility, you can set it to force compatibility to the 706 one, but it doesn't really matter, because the this guy here is going to actually fix it anyway, so I don't think it really it's not going to matter. Actually, really, you could even uncheck that, I bet. But I'm going to leave it alone, because for me it's working. And then once you have that set, you're good to go. But remember, this needs to point at that MO2 script that we created in .local, the hidden local folder, bin, and then MO2. Once that's done, that's it. Now you should be able to launch your game. So you could test it here, and you could see it launch. But first, before we do that, we're going to make sure that our mod organizer NXM handler works. So to show you that it does in fact work for me, I'm going to come over here and I'm going to download this Papyrus tool. So you can see I've already downloaded it once before. So if you click Mod Manager Download now, you'll notice Mod Manager is not even running right now. But I can click this download, and I actually don't meet this because I don't think I have whatever this is. But that's fine. I don't care. I'm just downloading it to show you. And then I'm going to click the slow download because I don't have a paid account for this because it's too expensive, to be honest, for my liking, for what I do anyway. So you'll notice that Mod Organizer will automatically fire up. Boom, there it is. It's already downloaded. We're good to go. And to show you basically another cool little trick here, if you right click here, you can actually go to delete, and you'll notice it says move to the recycle bin. And recycle bin's kind of a Windows concept, so you might be thinking this is going to end up in some ether place or some weird thing, or it's going to brick something because it's totally expecting it to go to some Windows recycle bin somewhere. But not so. In fact, it actually does put it in the default Linux recycle bin. So you'll notice it should appear in here, and you can see there's Papyrus after I hit the refresh button. You can see there's Papyrus right there. It's in there. You're good. So it actually does use your default Linux recycle bin, and you didn't even have to do anything special to make that happen. It just worked as if by magic, which is freaking cool. And that also means you can click empty trash, and it will empty it. And you could even click restore, and I'm pretty sure it restores it properly too. All that stuff is there as if by magic for you. You don't even have to do anything to achieve it. So that's pretty darn cool, I think. So you can see here I've got alternate start, I got a quality world map, got Sky UI. And I've got SKSE up here. If you want to add SKSE up here and it hasn't been populated for you, I'm not sure if it does. I think it should populate for you, but if it doesn't, you can go to Edit, and then in here you can simply click the dots. You can add one, you can click the dots, and you can point it to the SKSE. I'm pretty sure it will populate it for you, though. I think it detects it automatically and just puts it in there. But if it doesn't, that's how you can add things to it. That's going to come in especially handy later when you start doing things like putting body slide in there and whatever. You can add them to this list and then get your access to it this way. And that way you don't even have to do anything special. You just put the body slide in the folders where they go, and then you press run here, and it'll run it already in the context for you, already through Proton. Everything will be cool, just sort of magically. And that's pretty awesome. The only real quirky one I think is Nemesis, which I had to kind of install in both the default mod folder and in Skyrim's and in the Mod Organizer 2 folder structure. And maybe I'll do a quick follow-up video on that later after I toy with it here, but I'm just not at that point in this particular mod structure yet. So, I mean, I'm rocking 3 mods. My other mod manager is like over 200 now, so yeah, that's a thing. All right, so next up, what we want to do is we want to actually test this on our interface, because we proved that we have the mod manager working. It automatically downloads stuff. We're good to go. Chrome should also be doing this for you too. So if you go to Chrome, you can do that too. I'm not actually going to test that out here, but I have seen it work before. But I don't want to make the video longer than it has to be. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to close my mod organizer, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to log off. Now, you may notice on your Steam Deck, for instance, you have these icons up here. I do too. They've been hidden. One of them is return to your game mode, but pro tip, you don't need that icon. It's silly. It's just kind of there because I guess the Valve team thought that you wouldn't figure out what it was really doing, because all it's really doing is logging off your KDE session. That's it. That's the magic. And then they've got some special scripts that fire when it detects a log off, I guess, maybe, that are automatically switching to the other mode, because that's all it's doing. It's ending the processes and killing KDE and then launching the other system. So you can actually facilitate that by just using the normal KDE logout button. Now, this is going to look weird. It's going to look like my Steam Deck just kind of crashed because, you know, the Steam Link broke, but that's because the Steam process ended, and it's kind of one of the downsides to the Steam Link is that when your Steam process ends, your Steam Deck will quit streaming to Steam Link. But of course, you probably just heard my Steam Deck come back up there. And as soon as it comes back up and restarts the Steam process, you can obviously start your Steam Link back up. So there's really no downside to it. I'm just going to quickly put my little Steam Link pin in there, because I always recommend you set up a pin for Steam Link. It's not the best method. It actually kind of really sucks, and I wish they'd do it differently, but a pin is what it is for now. So here is what I want to show you about your deck interface. So if you've ever seen any top 10 videos for the Steam Deck or whatever, pretty much all of them are going to mention two things, and those two things will be EmuDeck and then Decky Loader, right? And EmuDeck is a topic for a different video. I don't even know that I want to cover it, because I think it's been beaten to death on YouTube at this point. But Decky Loader does deserve some honorable mentions, especially in this case, because it's very relevant to what we're doing. So if I pop open my my sidebar here and I go down to my plugin tools and I go to Steam Grid DB, this is a plugin that I highly recommend that you load. So once you get Decky Loader installed, you can do this, and this is again a different video. This is kind of extracurricular, but I might put a link in the description to some videos that are some resources that I found about Decky Loader. It's pretty easy to set up. It's really not hard at all, and I do recommend that you experiment with it. But anyway, you can find this Steam Grid DB. So you go to the storefront here, and then in here you can install different items from the store. And what I recommend you do is you find that Steam Grid DB, so it'll be down in here somewhere. There it is, Steam Grid DB, and just click install, right, and grab that. And then after that's done, you really don't need to do anything special once that's installed. Just find your game, go to it in your library. It'll probably be for you under your library under non-Steam games. You're just going to right click on this guy, and you're going to go to change artwork. Now that link might not necessarily always be there for you. I have seen cases where for some reason that link just doesn't populate. If it doesn't, just click off and click back on, and it should populate it. And again, I'm using a mouse through my Steam Link interface here. You'll probably just have, if you just have your deck, you can use the start button, I think, to get this menu to pop up, or you can use the cog inside of the actual app. So if you go in here, there's a cog, that'll get that to pop up as well. So here you can do change artwork, and in here you'll basically get links to the Steam Grid DB. Now I recommend you use artwork that is not the same as the artwork for your default game, because that way you'll be able to tell it apart. Now in my case, I've hidden my default game because I don't care about it anymore. But if you do want to leave your default game in case you ever want to launch the stock version for whatever reason, make sure your artwork is discernible so you can tell the two apart. So pick just something that looks different, looks cool, whatever. You know, there's a lot of really nice fancy artwork. You can get your capsule, which is your kind of poster. I don't know why they call it a capsule. It's a freaking poster. It's what it is. And then you have the wide capsule, or, you know, a banner. And then you have your hero, which I guess is kind of a different kind of banner. It's sort of like background art. And here you can pick one of these. You got a logo, which I think is the only thing that has a sane name in this thing, except for maybe the icon, I guess. You have your logo, and that's going to appear over the hero in your menu, I guess. I'll show you that in a second. And then you're going to have your icon, and your icon will you know, appear there. Now, once you pick your icon, if you change your icon, it's going to ask you if you want to restart. So you can opt to do that. Your icon will not show up unless and until you do. Also note that this game, the reason why I told you to make sure that this is named exactly the way your Skyrim default game is named is because this does an exact match, an exact search. But once you are done here, I think it's actually safe where you can come into your cog, go to properties, and then up here you can come in and you can add parenthesis MO2 or something like that here. I hid my game and I want this to look like it's the normal game, so I just kind of left it alone. But you can feel free to modify that however you want. And now at this point, you can actually click play. And congratulations on your game working. Now, this is the weirdness I told you about. You might see a little pop-up here. Yep, there it is. Completely ignore that and just let it ride. I don't know how to get rid of that. It's because of the whole bypassing Mod Organizer 2 thing, from what I understand. I can't figure out how to get rid of it just yet. It's a minor annoyance. It's there for like 2 seconds. Just ignore it and it'll go away. Here you can see the ENB series compiling shaders or whatever. I haven't edited the INI file to fix that so that it saves them just yet. But you can see that the game is there and it does in fact run. And with this setup, you can actually set up your own custom controls for it. You can manipulate it. Here I'm manipulating it with my Steam Deck up-down arrow keys, but you can also use your joystick or whatever you want to use for it. I'm actually using the touchpad now. And you can, let's see if I can load maybe my crash test dummy save here. If I go to, let's see. That one's fine. I can show that one running. And yeah, I just have some missing mods because this is actually a save that came from my desktop PC, and that's got a couple extra mods on it when I made this save, but it should be good enough, sufficient for this demonstration anyway. But yeah, you can clearly see the game is running, which this is actually part of the demonstration that I did not do in my prior video because I kind of got done with it and I was like, well, I'm about an hour in, so I'll leave it be. But yeah, you can see the game is running. Let's not enable that for now. But yeah, it runs really well. I feel like it's a little laggy because I'm doing a recording of it and it's on the screen, so you'll have to excuse it. But understand that on my Steam Deck it looks pretty darn good. Pristine even would be a good word for it. But like I said, it's kind of blown up and out of proportion for you on the actual monitor I'm using here. Yeah, as you can see, so if I go in here, you can see that I do in fact have SkyUI working, and I can use my up-down arrow keys to basically work through the menus. I can use my left and right arrow keys to work through this. I can use my shoulder buttons to maneuver through this, and this is all stock, by the way. This is completely default. The thing is actually just handling it for me at this point. I haven't made any attempts to customize my controls just yet, and all of this is working this well just out of the box. So that's pretty darn cool, I think. There's the start button working, and I can use my left trigger and right trigger, as is indicated at the top there, to manipulate the different things here. And yeah, it's fantastic. It works really, really well. It seems to be, doing just fine. And again, this looks a lot better on the actual physical Steam Deck than it does on my screen here, so you'll have to excuse the fuzziness and all that. It's not really optimized to cast to my monitor here just yet. Those are things I'm still kind of working on. Anyway, I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and cut the video off because I think I've demonstrated everything I wanted to demonstrate. I'm pretty sure that you guys should hopefully be able to extrapolate what I've done to whatever cause you're trying to achieve there. I do hope this helped a lot of you guys out. I hope you found it very interesting and informative. Do let me know in the comments if you do anything to build on top of my baseline here. I'm definitely interested to learn new things. I certainly can't do it all by myself all the time. I do my best, but figuring this out took a little bit of effort. I've been working on this for about 2 days now. And that's with having the baseline of my already having done a video on doing this on Linux in the first place. So it was definitely a bit challenging to figure all this out. So do let me know if you discover anything else, if you figure out a way to clean up something I left kind of janky, or if you have any recommendations or thoughts on how we can improve this method. Note that there is something called Tinkerbox, I think, and it has a Mod Organizer 2 built into it that you can try. They say that it is not really supposed to be used with Proton games. It's basically for native Linux games. And I can't think of a use case for that right now off the top of my head where I would need it for a native Linux game. So that seems kind of silly to me, but it does support a lot of games, so who knows. But for my purposes, I couldn't really get it to work with Skyrim. They said it's supposed to work with Proton games and that it's just not really the intended or supported approach, but I couldn't make it work. But this method does work. I can see it working. I've shown you it works, and it works in a very feature-complete way. So, yeah, I definitely I'm excited to see what everybody does with this, and I hope that I've made the Steam Deck an accessible platform for your Skyrim modding needs. My character looks a bit dorky right now, huh? All right, guys. Well, as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.